Who are we voting for? Meet the candidates. Who Are We Voting For was created so we could understand who the candidates are and what they are about. This is not an endorsement for any candidate. This is for the voter to be more educated about who we're voting for.
Hello, I'm Sarah Terry. I currently serve as special counsel at Dickey, McCamey, and Chilcote. I grew up in Lawrenceville, and then we moved to Millville when I was about 5 or 6. Growing up in Millville wasn't quite the same as the Millville today. There were no breweries, there were no yarn shops, there were no hipsters. Millville was a tough place. And unfortunately, during my teenage years, the heroin epidemic hit Millville really, really hard. I think the first time that I saw somebody use drugs, I was 14 years old. And this was a neighbor. And so she was somebody's daughter, she was somebody's sister, she had children. And seeing that happen over and over again really impacted me, because these were real people. This wasn't just people who were on the news or in the newspaper. These were real people, and their families were dealing with addiction and all the devastation that addiction caused. And I had a front row seat to that. And so growing up, you know, even though I came from a pretty strong and stable family, this really changed who I was as a person. And I will say, maybe a little selfishly, I decided to get out of Millville when I graduated from high school. And so I moved 600 miles away. I moved to North Carolina, and I started community college there. I transferred to the University of North Carolina, and I ended up meeting having a roommate that was going to go to law school, and she had some books there to take the LSAT test. And so I took a shot at that. I did pretty well, and I ended up being able to get into law school. I was accepted at Duquesne's night program. So I moved back, and I lived in my parents' basement while I went to law school. And I can still remember the first day that I pulled up at the Duquesne. It was Mercedes and Benzes, and I was driving this old, used, busted up Ford Taurus. And I can still really remember thinking like I didn't belong there. You know, I hadn't known anybody from Millville that went to law school. And it was really intimidating. I also had to work a full-time job to be able to afford to live while I was in law school. And during that time, I worked at a criminal defense firm, and I really, really enjoyed it. And so I always say that the most memorable parts of law school were the first and the last day of school, because I was so thankful that I made it through, but even more thankful because I knew it was a way for me to be able to help people. I've been a defense attorney for the past 13 years. I've handled a wide variety of cases, everything from retail theft cases to unemployment compensation hearings to filing and defending civil lawsuits. I have an incredibly broad range of experience in a lot of different areas of the law. I've also served as a judicial law clerk in the family division for the past 12 years, where I have written hundreds of opinions on divorce, custody, and juvenile court cases. It's a really unique skill set because I actually get to sit with a judge while he hears cases, while he decides cases. He also consults me if there's questions or issues about legal issues in a case. And so I've sort of gotten that behind the scenes look at judicial administration. I'd also like to think that my personal experiences qualify me to be a judge, because I've had clients with significant mental health issues. I've had clients who suffer from addiction-related issues. I have a lot of experience with different types of treatment options, And that's incredibly important when you're a judge in the Court of Common Pleas, because the upwards of 80% of litigants that come through the criminal system have one of those two issues. So it's really important that judges understand those issues and understand that there's often circumstances and facts behind every case of how people and why people find themselves in the court system. I'm also really interested in being able to give people an opportunity at a second chance if they deserve a second chance. So often people just make mistakes because they're young or because they're in active addiction. And I think it really takes a unique person to be able to understand the difference between a bad person and a person that made a bad choice. And that's why I believe that I'm qualified to run for judge. I decided to run for the Court of Common Pleas because I wanted to use my personal and my professional experiences to build a better court system. As a defense attorney and a judicial law clerk, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of our system, and I want to make a difference. I want to make sure people have access to treatment programs that will encourage meaningful recovery from mental health issues or drug and alcohol related issues. And I also really want to be able to offer people a chance to participate in a trauma-informed court, particularly our kids. So many of the juveniles have experienced significant trauma before they come into the court system. And we need judges on the bench who understand that and who can offer our kids services so that they don't end up in the adult criminal system over and over again. And as a mom, as a lawyer, as a law clerk, I think I possess all those skills to make a difference in people's lives, to treat everybody fairly, and to build a better court system for everyone. So I really believe that we need to put people on the bench that have real life experiences. You know, for so long, I think we've had a lot of really similar candidates from similar backgrounds. And I think this is the first time that we're going to be able to really change what the bench looks like. And most all the candidates are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. So these are going to be the judges for the next 20 years. And so it's really important that we have people that have as much life experience as they do professional experience. I talked a lot about mental health and drug and alcohol throughout all my speeches and on my website and as my platform. And the reason why those things are important to me is because I had a loved one commit suicide when they were a teenager. And while I'm not entirely sure why that happened, I understand the fallout of it, and I understand how unaddressed mental health issues can impact families. And so many people that find themselves in the court system end up in that because they have unaddressed mental health issues. And I think those are the kind of experiences, although they're really sad and they're really tragic, that we need to have people on our bench who have experienced so that they know that there's more to a case than what's in the case file. Drug and alcohol is also incredibly important to me. I know I mentioned previously, I've had friends, I've had family members suffer from addiction-related issues. And while there's been a lot of sad stories, I have to say that there's been a lot of success stories. I have several friends who have been clean and sober for 5 years, for 10 years, for 15 years. They've gone on to lead really productive lives despite being involved in the criminal justice system. And I know their journeys weren't always easy ones because they had convictions, many of them felony convictions, and I'm now helping them to get pardons. And I really don't think that that's the way things should be. I really think that we should be giving people a real shot at success in both their sobriety and in their personal and professional lives. And that's really propelled me to want to run for judge, because I want to make a difference. The people of Allegheny County should vote for me because of both my personal and my professional experiences. I grew up in a working class union family, so I know how important the hardworking men and women are here in Allegheny County. I grew up during a time when the heroin epidemic hit really hard. So I've had many friends and family members who have suffered from addiction and mental health related issues. These issues are really important to me, and I want to bring those concerns to the bench, and I want to do everything that I can to help people suffering from those issues. I have been a defense attorney for the past 13 years. I have a wide variety of experience. I've handled many different types of cases, and I've also been a judicial law clerk in the family division for the past 12 years. In those two roles, I have experience in all 4 divisions of the Court of Common Pleas. I know what it takes to show up, to put in the hard work, and to fight for fairness because I've been doing that for my entire career. In addition to lawyering and law clerking, I'm also a mom. I'm married and I have 2 little boys, and those boys are really the inspiration of me running for judge. I want to make a difference here in Allegheny County, and for me that starts with running for judge. I'm raising them to be kind, compassionate, and empathetic. And if I were elected, those are all traits that I would hope to embody as a Court of Common Pleas judge. I have a lot of really big ideas for the court system. I want to build a better court system. I want to improve access to services for mental health, drug and alcohol related issues, and I want to create a more trauma-informed court for our juveniles. Up to 80% of the kids who come through the system have experienced childhood trauma, and if we don't get treatment options right for them, then we're going to see them in the adult system over and over again. I want to build a better court system to address these issues. And I truly believe that if we can build a better court system to address these issues, we can build better and safer communities. So vote for me, Sarah Terry. I'm number 14 on the ballot. Thank you.